We'll let you see what others are saying. Let's take another question. Catherine Johnson, please.
If clever banks and bankers in London cheat us and ethical banks mess up, who can a Manchester girl trust?
If clever banks and bankers in London cheat us and ethical banks mess up, who can a Manchester girl trust? Sadiq Khan.
Well, it's shocking, the revelations at the Cooperative Bank, the appointment of the chairman and what's happened over the last 3 years in particular. Had things been differently, they could have taken over 700 Lloyd's branches as well. I'm pleased and I welcome the various inquiries that are taking place. We need to learn the lessons.
All of them, including the Prime Minister's one?
Absolutely. All the inquiries. The Chancellor's in out, the inquiry that the Treasury Select Committee will be doing, the inquiry being done by the Financial Conduct Authority, the inquiry the Cooperative Group is doing. Look, the cooperative movement is something we should all be proud of. It's about mutuals, not-for-profits, getting involved in the provision of funeral services, legal services, grocery stores, financial advice as well. Many people bank with the co-op because it's an ethical product. And when you bear in mind who's now bailing them out, people who are banking with the cooperative are concerned. The cooperative has a political party as well. They're a sister to the Labour Party. We're very proud of our association with them.
Is it a safe bank to bank with, in your view?
Well, it's not for me to say whether it's safe or unsafe. There's no evidence that it's not safe. Otherwise, the regulators, and we've changed the way banks are regulated now, would be stepping in. The fact they've not stepped in gives me a source of confidence. I'm pleased that we're looking into the affairs of the Cooperative Bank. What I would say is this, though. To make a sweeping assertion against the cooperative movement based upon the actions of one ex-chairman and what happened last year, I think is very, very unfair. In this part of the country, in particular, over the last 100 years, you've seen the cooperative movement, mutuals, doing a huge source of good for this part of the country. OK, well, what can a Manchester... what can a Manchester girl do? Well, there are various guarantees. So if you've got savings with the Cooperative Bank, your savings up to about £80,000 are safe. One of the concerns I have is actually what the focus should be from the Prime Minister is not cheap party political points against Ed Miliband or the Labour Party. It should be making sure borrowers, savers and investors are reassured that their monies are safe with the Cooperative Bank rather than cheap party political points. All right, cheap party political points, Jeremy Hunt.
Well, I actually agree with Sadiq that mutuals...
You can't keep agreeing with
well,
him.
I'm sure...
Well,
we had a little bit of a disagreement, didn't we, just now over statistics. But mutuals are a brilliant concept. And I think in a period where people are mistrusting banks, actually the sort of trust you get with someone like John Lewis it gives you confidence in an organisation, and I think we should be encouraging different ownership models. And in fact, we are doing a study at the moment to see whether there's anything that we can learn in the NHS about the mutuals movement. But I think in this case, we should be thinking about the nearly 8 million individual bondholders in the Co-op Bank, because they're people. Most of these people are not wealthy people. These are their life savings that they've invested in something that they trusted. They got a dividend last year. They haven't had a dividend this year. And they are wondering how on earth the Reverend Flowers managed to become the chairman of this bank. And I think the shocking thing is how someone with so... I mean, you know, the crystal meths creates a lot of newspaper headlines, but the really awful thing is how someone with so little knowledge of banking actually got to run a really important institution. And I just hope that... I just hope, because, you know, we're clearing up a lot of mess after the banking crisis, but I hope it does look like he got that job because of his connections, and some of them, you know, they look very good political connections, and I just hope the Labour Party will be totally transparent, because I think their responsibility is to those 8 million bondholders to make sure we get to the truth, make sure that they have a secure future for their savings, and make sure this can never, ever happen again.
Is it a cheap political point to attach the blame to Labour?
Well, I think, in fairness, there were very, very big connections between the Labour Party and the Co-op Bank. It's a big donor, and I think it's also important to say that all the bondholders haven't got their dividends. Labour's still got its loan. So I think the least Labour can do is actually be honest and transparent about what happened.
The woman there in the third row from the back, or second row, would it be? Yes, you.
Would this have ever come to light if Mr Flowers' seedy past hadn't been exposed by a national newspaper?
Ollie, your view.
It's possible that the answer to that is no. I think it is possible that the answer to that is no. And we still rely on our newspapers as thriving and vibrant campaigning and exposing organisations. For instance, we're seeing the trial, the Murdoch trial at the moment, or rather, the trial that's looking at the telephone hacking. And that would not have been exposed if it hadn't been for some of the newspapers. But I think that as a long-term customer of the Co-op myself, I am pretty disappointed in all of this. And what I really ask is, how on earth, still, after the banking crisis that we had in 2007, what on earth, why is there still a kind of regulatory system that isn't picking up these kind of things?
Okay.
The one thing I would say, though, is that if we're going to have 4 inquiries about what on earth happened in the past, I'm not overly interested in that right now. Tomorrow and next week, what I'm really interested in is saving what I think is a great bank. And it's the kind of bank we need rather than payday lenders.
Thank you. You on the gangway there, yes.
Mr Hunt seems to like winning some political points with regards to laying some of the blame of the cooperative affair at the Labour Party. Perhaps then we should start looking more into the financial organisations that have made significant payments to the Conservative Party and their dodgy appointments.
We have.
Do you agree with him?
I mean, Jeremy can't help himself. He began his answer by saying he agrees with me, but he had to make his cheap point. The bank has not given any loans that are not secured long-term commercial agreements. They've given no donations to the Labour Party. Andrew Tyree made recommendations to the Banking Commission, which, if he'd implemented now, would have uncovered some of this. And actually, last year, the Chancellor, George Osborne, and the Treasury ministers spent a great deal of time lobbying Brussels to change the rules and trying to persuade the cooperative bank to take over the Lloyds branches. That's the last 3 years, Jeremy, under your watch.
So can we
stop
just
making the cheap point
No, I'm not, actually,
about our connection with the cooperative bank.
The Chancellor,
if you're talking about the movement, that's a different point. We're very proud of our link with the cooperative movement, and we should all be proud of the stuff they've achieved over the last 150 years. Don't brag.
All right, you made your point. All right, go on, Jeremy, quickly.
No, I was just saying. The Chancellor actually lobbied on behalf of the Co-op Bank, which is a donor to the Labour Party. That's not being political. What we're saying is...
So let's clear this thing up. You say it's not it doesn't loan... You say it doesn't lend money.
There is a donor.
Well,
the bank is not a donor to the Labour Party.
It lends. Well, he did a donor to Ed Ball's office, the cooperative group.
No, the cooperative group is... The bank is very different. Look...
Hang on, all I've said, and I think this is very important, is I didn't actually say anything political. What I actually said was that we need transparency from Labour to get to the bottom of this, because nearly 8 million bondholders are worrying about what's going to happen to their savings, and we need to make sure that we find out the truth. And that's all we're saying, and I don't think you could disagree with that.
All right.